Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our channel. Hope you're having a good day. We have a super packed show for you today. We're really excited. Got some interesting stories. But first, I just wanted to check up on my Spar and Brawl co-host, Sam. Hope everything's okay on your side.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, everything is good. There's been some interesting recent developments in the fields that we tend to cover. So, yeah, it's been an exciting week. Everything good with you?
Yeah, everything good. Super excited about today's show. So Sam has a lot of news and developments on what's going on in Iran and with a couple of other countries, notably with South Korea. And then we also have some other stories, including what is possibly going to be a devastating move by the US to label the Houthis as a terrorist organization. We're going to talk about that and what that means. Link that, of course, to the agreement signed by Saudi Arabia and Qatar just last week, putting aside their little foe. And then we have some good old Jimmy Dore progressive stories again. And Jimmy Dore, in one of his last videos, pointed out how terrible the coverage of the Young Turks has been on Julian Assange, and I had to go watch it for myself, and I can assure you guys it's pretty horrible, Sam. I'm looking forward to just telling you how bad the coverage was. But okay, let's get right into this, Sam. The floor is all yours. Tell us what's going on with Iran these days.
This is not just about Iran, to be honest. It's about, I'm sure most of our viewers or listeners noticed that Iran has seized the South Korean ship that was apparently carrying chemicals, potentially ethanol, was carrying it through the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has seized the ship. Originally, when Iran did seize the ship, they announced that it was because it was polluting the Persian Gulf. It was polluting it with chemicals, and that was the official reason given about the seizure of the ship. South Koreans have complained about the seizure of the ship and have called for its immediate release. And most analysts outside of Iran and some inside of Iran actually argue that this has nothing to do with pollution, and it's more to do with the Iran's blocked money, Iran's oil money that has been blocked in South Korea because of U.S. sanctions. South Korea claims that because of U.S. sanctions, they are basically incapable of uh, financially transferring the money into Iran. And Iran is very upset about that. So analysts have argued that Iran is trying to use uh, any excuse like to seize ships and then use it as a bargaining chip against South Korea. And to be honest, this does seem somewhat likely because Iranian, I believe, one of government spokes uh, people, when speaking to the press, when press was saying that some people have described this as piracy and illegal seizure, blah blah blah. He said that no, we are not the pirates. South Korean government are the pirates, or they are the ones who are illegally seizing Iranian money. So he did, at least in rhetoric, connect the issue of South Korean ship to the Iranian funds that are blocked in South Korea. And to be honest, in a way, Iran, I mean, I'm not quite familiar with, I'm not at all familiar with international law in regarding environment and sea travel and all that, but I'm sure Iran is looking for any excuse now to put pressure on countries that it has a lot of money stuck in Japan, it has a lot of money stuck in China, it has a lot of money Iraq that it can't get. So I'm not sure. They're using whatever pressure tools they have right now to to get their hands on the money, basically. And this seems to be the case with the seizure of the Korean ship. And most recently, Korean diplomats came to Iran to negotiate the release of the ship. And it was quite interesting because Iranian foreign ministry spokespersons have argued that South Korean officials should avoid politicizing this issue and should, just wait for the issue to go through its normal judicial process within Iran, because they say it's out of our hands now. It's with the judiciary. This case is being reviewed by the judiciary, which is independent from the executive in Iran.
Okay, okay, very interesting. So, how long has the boat been seized right now in Iran? How long has it been there? And I'm guessing the South Korean crew is also stuck in Iran then?
There were 20 members, by the way, on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
but and they were from. By the way, the crew were not South Korean necessarily. They were from Indonesia, Myanmar, Vietnam. I can't find the exact date, but I think it's more than a week. It's
Okay,
more than
okay,
a
I
week.
see.
Hmm.
So interesting. So
Yeah.
you think that Iran is really taking these steps, of course, just somehow try to get some of the money that's owed by these other countries. But I'm guessing these other countries, of course, are also limited by the US sanctions. I mean, that's the whole story, right?
Sure, to be yes, yeah, yeah, that's the whole story. But to be honest, it's more than that. I think Iran is trying to, because everybody is expecting negotiations when Biden administration comes into power. Some even probably assume that there are already secret negotiations going on. So Iran may be trying to, maximize its hand, its cards in dealing with America. Just like some argue that U.S. Actions, like the one that we are going to talk about later on, like the Houthi thingy, like everybody's trying to maximize, get their position as strong as they can for future negotiation. So that's another possibility. Iran is basically flexing muscles.
Yeah, no, 100%. And hopefully, if if the Democrats can keep Trump busy for the next week or so, the next week or 10 days, and nothing crazy happens on that front. So,
To be honest, after the riots and the fact that now he may be impeached again, and even Republicans are even saying that they may agree with his impeachment and all that, I doubt it's gonna. Right now, yeah, I mean, I doubt anything crazy is gonna happen in the next 10 days. Although, you know, as you make a prediction.
okay. And then Iran has started to enrich his uranium again, right? Trying to hit the 20% mark, right?
Oh, sure. Let me get into this first. First, as a part of saying about the fact that Iran is trying to get as strong as it can before future negotiations, there has been a significant increase in Iranian politicians' demands from international community and from U.S. specifically. The new Speaker of the Parliament, a Speaker of the Parliament in Iran is basically sort of it's kind of the head of the most numerous faction in the parliament as well. So this is the most important person there. He said that just legally coming back to the deal is not going to be enough for the Iran. Iran needs real action and needs to see real transactions happening before uh, reversing certain action it has taken during the last few years. There was also a member of the parliament that said that after the inauguration, Joe Biden has 1 month to um, show uh, show, I guess, goodwill or show some action regarding this issue. Otherwise, uh, otherwise Iran will take further steps and may even officially leave the deal, basically. At the same time, the supreme leader made a televised speech in which he made it clear that the removal of sanctions is the key and, according to him, logical and rational demand of Iran from U.S. and world community. And he said we won't beg for U.S.'s return to the deal, and we won't be excited by it, but we want the removal of the sanctions. So Iran is hardening its position somewhat, which is quite natural considering that they literally their was to wait out Trump, and it seems that their strategy worked basically. So that's been happening, and as a part of that, then we get to the issue of the uranium. So Iran, I believe, few weeks ago announced publicly that they are going to enrich uranium higher grade, if I'm not mistaken. So, and then they officially started enriching uranium at 20%, and now the IAEA, the atomic agency, they are reporting that Iran is doing it at a very they're producing uranium tw- uh, enriched at 20% grade at a very fast rate, and so they're basically producing a lot of that. But what is crucial about that is that this is I don't understand physics at all, but from the articles I read, this is one technical step away from 90% enrichment, which with 90% enriched uranium, then you have the capability to make a bomb. You don't necessarily have to make it. Apparently, many countries have this capability, but don't necessarily have nuclear bombs. So that's what's very crucial about that. And if I suppose if Iran doesn't see real action from US or European, they may move towards enriching uranium at 90%.
Yeah, I think this is like pretty huge news, and they moved to do this quite quickly, and they're not hiding it, and they've put it out there that they're aiming for 20% right now, and it's in the open, I guess. I mean, this is big, right? I mean, is this how close were they? What percentage had they reached before the deal?
Oh, before the deal,
Yeah.
I think they did reach. Oh God. Yeah, I need to really do my. I know they reached 20% for sure, but I think they even reached 90%. According to reports, they were 6 months away from capability of building a bomb. So I think they were about the same. I mean, they are now about the same as they were probably before the deal, I would think.
Okay, I see. Yeah, so we're gonna have to see what happens, I guess, with the Biden administration when they come in. I mean, with Trump, I always thought that there was like an opportunity for like maybe like some kind of easy, miraculous deal if Trump got desperate, but things never really moved that way.
No, sadly, no. But uh, uh, the thing
And
was that there were two major problems. It was one was that, and it was both countries' internal politics basically was the major issue that stood in the way of reaching a deal, because Iranian government had uh, put a lot of political capital, Iranian government, into that deal with Obama, and Trump had discarded that deal like a toilet paper, basically. And they couldn't like just move on to another deal, especially because of the historical experience of Iran's dealing with United States. At the same time, in the US, Trump, while himself a deal maker, and I think much easier to deal with than somebody like Obama, he was on the Middle Eastern issues was very much, hampered by the fact that his close family members were, he was in pretty much in the pocket of Israeli and Saudi lobby. So he had personal, financial, political relations with two rivals of Iran in the region. So, I think internal politics of both countries made it somewhat impossible for any rapprochement during Trump years.
I mean, and Trump is incapable of, following something through and making this deal with, it'd be much more complicated than the Western Sahara, Morocco, Israel deal that, he managed to put in place. So just, yeah, on a personal level, he couldn't do it even. But yeah, of course, with the bigger issues and his interests and his family's interests, where they all lied. But okay, anything else on Iran? Note worth
Uh,
mentioning?
Iranian military has. There has been. I mean, we didn't cover this much, but last few weeks there was a somewhat heightening of tensions between Iran and U.S. in Persian Gulf. Then Americans pulled out their aircraft carrier, pulled it back, and Iran released a new warship that is very secretive. They're very secretive about, but it's a very fast warship. So there has been some military development in that segment. But I think all of that now is overshadowed by the riots in the U.S. and all that. So I don't think anything major is going to happen. So that's about it, really.
Okay, okay, very nice. So if it's okay with you, let's segue to our other stories from the region.
Of course.
Yeah, so okay, so let's start with the United States. Just yesterday on Monday, or I think maybe on Sunday, they came out saying that they've designated Yemen's Houthi movement, or the Yemen's Houthis, as a terrorist organization. So the first thing that came to my mind was like, I was surprised that they hadn't done this before. Maybe I thought they would have done it. And then I was thinking, what I mean, what could possibly be the repercussions? What could be the practical repercussions of this? And I was thinking, I don't think there's any real peace movement or like deal going on in Yemen. I think that both sides are very far, all three sides, every side involved, are very far from making any kind of deal. So it doesn't hamper it too much there, I would perhaps, but I think it's probably going to be just very devastating for just normal Yemenis who rely on really on imports and aid. So I think like Yemen imports something like 80 or 90% of its food. This was even before the war. They're really reliant on imports. And now, of course, when there were talks of the US perhaps designating the Houthis as a rebel organization, I had read that the head of the World Food Program came out, and also the head of Oxfam, sorry, they both said that how, it would be devastating if the US labels them as a terrorist organization. And they gave the example of Somalia and saying that, once this happened, if you label and they also pointed out how the Houthis actually, they're really in power in half the country, and, including like the capital is under them. They run ministries, they run all kinds of things. So if they're labeled as a terrorist organization, it really makes their life hard for, just giving out aid. And, maybe the Saudis are done with bombing the country for now, at least, and so are the Emiratis. But the humanitarian situation, as the UN always says, is just catastrophic in Yemen. But yeah, that was quite devastating. And Sam, so I was thinking, okay, so just last week, they announced that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are putting their differences behind, and we're going to get more into this. But the first thing that came to my mind is that the US and Trump gave this and did this for Saudi Arabia in exchange for them making that agreement with Qatar, like then last week. What do you think? Do you think I'm onto something or not really?
To be honest, I mean, perhaps I don't know, they may have become happier because of this, but maybe not. I mean, Saudi feelings are not completely. I mean, when we talk about Saudis, there are different factions. Some of them actually may want peace with the Houthis. I think, to be honest, designating Houthis as terrorist group had more to do with American internal politics and the fact that Trump wants to show that he's a hardliner, and the fact that they want to even further deteriorate the relationship between Iran and US. Make it again, make America's hand stronger in future. So this is another card they can play in future negotiations. So, and to be honest, as you said, it was surprising that it hadn't happened yet. And it was largely because of humanitarian concerns, or at least concerns about the, people making noise about humanitarian issues. So I don't see that much connection with the Saudi Saudi Qatar deal. Although I would say I think it's part like the it's part of larger. Trump has been doing a lot of things regarding Middle East and Israel, and some say it's because he wants to run again and he wants the backing of Israeli lobby. Some say it's because Pompeo wants to run and he wants the backing of the Israeli lobby. But he's been doing a lot of things that are in favor of Saudi-Israeli relations in the last few months, including even the Abraham Accords. You could argue was something, although that was before the elections.
I mean,
So I think
100%.
these moves should all be seen as a part of like that. Like even the Saudi Qatar deal, which we talk about in a second, was basically the reports are that America was pushing for it, and Trump wanted this to happen before he leaves office. He wanted to be the one who, you know, uh, resolve this issue, or at least take the credit for it. So yeah, I think, yeah, it's just another move in that regard. I don't think it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. He's given so many parting gifts to Arab countries, or at least Arab leaders of countries such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and of course Israel. And one reason that just came to my head, I was thinking this because I was watching BBC and they had their Focus Africa program, and the guest made a very just a very decent point. I don't think it was very very far fetched or anything. Basically, his point was just that Trump has only met, I believe, two African leaders during his 4 years that he was there. I mean, even other previous administrations, it's not like they go and meet with African leaders all the time. But his point was that Trump always, the only way he thinks is like, I'll do one favor for you and you do a favor back for me. So he mentioned that the two countries, one of them is they were trying to sell airplanes and jets to them, not sure what, and the other one was Sudan. So he said that he meant with the Sudan leaders because he told them, hey, make a deal with Israel and we will remove you from the terrorist list, which of course was devastating for Sudan. So this one just seemed like it kind of fell into that kind of Trump's thinking. He's like, okay, fine, you guys make an agreement right now and we say that I did it, and yeah, I'll label them as terrorist organization if that's what you want. But yeah, there are all these other compelling reasons as why he would have done it. But his negotiation is just always on based on one thing. That's as far as his brain and thinking goes, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But yeah, but anyway, it's an interesting move. It
Yeah,
won't help obviously the Yemeni people, but Yemeni situation has basically evolved into a stalemate now.
yeah.
So I mean, it's not real. It's just a war of attrition, and a very shitty situation. So
No,
it's just
horrible,
got a bit.
exactly.
It just got a little bit worse.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, that's what I was saying in the beginning. So apparently, it will of course make it harder to also negotiate with a terrorist organization. But I mean, there's not much negotiations going on right now in Yemen. I would assume it's probably the food and the imports that will be hit the hardest, if anything. But okay, so let's move on to the Qatar Saudi agreement, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a news that got massive coverage. So
Yeah,
again, everybody probably knows all the details. But yeah, as Saudi, about 3 years ago, Saudi government led a coalition of Arab and Muslim nations on a blockade against Qatar because they accused Qatar of fostering and supporting terrorism and cooperating with Iran. And they demanded, there was a list of demands. I think you're going to talk about it specifically. There was a major list of demands, and they said that there is going to be a full blockade until these demands are met. Finally, they reached a deal, and they basically they've come to there hasn't the deal hasn't been published in details, but the blockade has ended. Flights are taking place, borders are opened, and the blockade included some of the most important countries that were blockading Qatar were Saudi, UAE, Bahrain, um, if I'm not mistaken, Egypt, a couple of other African nations, I believe. So quite a few number of Arab nations were blocking Qatar. So, and you know, uh, as far as I can tell, Qatar hadn't met any of those demands. So it seems, as far as I can see, a clear win for Qatari government. Um and reports are Kuwaiti government played a key role in um, negotiating peace between Saudis and Qataris. There were a couple of interesting things in his speech. Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi de facto Saudi leader, referred said that in the face of especially in the growing in the face of growing threat of Iran, Arab nations and Arab brothers need to come together to stand against Iran. So that's the way he put it. At the same time, the foreign minister of Qatar came out and said that while they agreed on security cooperation with other Arab nations, that does not affect their foreign relations with Iran whatsoever. So yeah, that's about it. Um,
Yeah,
it's an
for me,
interesting
the
deal.
major thing is really what you just touched on. So, can you just talk about a little bit more? Any reactions coming out of Iran? What do you think? Because, I mean, that was the first thing that came to my mind is that now that the agreement has been reached, is there going to be any difference in the relationship between Qatar and Iran, who are, of course, much closer and not at war, like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are with Iran?
Iran, to be honest, interestingly, somewhat has been somewhat quiet on the issue. Although Iran has been busy with its own issues regarding Corona and economy and all that, but they haven't really responded. But I don't think they care too much, to be honest, because they would have assumed it would have happened anyway soon. So no, they haven't really responded in any way, or I haven't really seen any responses from Iranian government. But I would think they're not. It's Iran does not really view these small Arab nations. I think Iranian government does not view them as independent actors so much. So because of that, I think they don't really like. They're not either too happy or sad about it. You know.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I mean, that's good to hear for now. So you mentioned the 13 demands. I'll just like read over a few of them quickly. And I mean, it's just so funny. Not a
Sure.
single one of them were met. I was reading this article in Bloomberg and it was saying how the Saudis have come out and said, this list was meant to, to really push the negotiations and like get the best out of like whatever little feud, but then the guys like you guys didn't get absolutely anything out of it, so it's kind of hard to say like how you cornered the Qataris with those 13 demands. But honestly, when you kind of read them, it sounds like like two kids put it together, like okay, let's make a list of demands. Okay, start with the funniest ones are of course the Al Jazeera ones that obviously did not happen. So number 6 was straight up shut down Al Jazeera and its affiliate stations. That hasn't happened. What else do they have? So of course the first one is the major one that we just talked about, and I mean if they didn't achieve anything there, so that's the biggest failure. So number 1 was to scale down diplomatic ties with Iran and close the Iranian diplomatic missions in Qatar. So that's really the main one that they failed. The second one, had you heard about this? And I don't think anything happened here either, which is to immediately shut down the Turkish military base, which was in 2017 under
Oh yeah.
construction. Is that's still going,
Oh
right?
yeah.
That's still happening?
I mean, more than Iran, Qatar is far closer to Turkey because they are both Sunni as well. And yeah, Turkey had a military. Turkey exports a lot of raw materials and dairy goods and that type of thing to Qatar. So to be honest, Turkey was a big winner. Turkey and to a lesser extent Iran were the big winner of this blockade, economically speaking. So yeah, that was a big issue as well.
Yeah, and then the other demands are pretty much to, end interference in sovereign countries' internal affairs. Like, okay, some like vague stuff. But I love number 12. I actually hadn't seen this, I guess, properly before. Agree to all demands within 10 days of list being submitted to Qatar, or the list will become invalid. So, okay, so that's
Oh
why
wow.
actually they didn't met any of them. I love that.
I mean, it
There's
wasn't
nothing
even
there to
10
see,
days.
people.
Obviously.
Let's move on. Okay. Here's a list of demands. You have 5 minutes. Go. Okay, never mind. I won anyway. You. But what do
Invalid.
you think were the What do you
Let's
think?
yeah, let's
But yeah, why do you think last week this all happened? Like, why not 2 months ago or in 3 months? I guess just the usual reason of Trump at this time like pushing them and making them happen, and the Saudis seeing that this isn't going anywhere.
yeah, think Saudis realize that if Biden administration comes in, they
Yeah.
might have to even Qatar may
Yeah.
make a list of demands or something. So yeah,
Hey,
because of
someone
that,
pointed it
they
out that in one
uh,
of the debates, what did Biden said something that American politicians don't usually say about Saudis. They said that they're I can't remember, but do you remember that he said that they're like a problematic state, or he said something along those
yeah,
lines.
Mr. Vice President, the CIA has concluded that the leader of Saudi Arabia directed the murder of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The State Department also says the Saudi government is responsible for executing nonviolent offenders and for torture. President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders. Would you?
Yes, and I said it at the time. Khashoggi was, in fact, murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to, in fact, sell more weapons to them. We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are.
yeah, he said he's gonna cut off ties to them, cut off aids to them completely if they don't adhere to, like, stop, breaking international law regarding Yemen and all that.
Yeah. I mean, with the Biden administration, it's just that all these deals, even if they were going to happen, they would just take a much longer time. They couldn't just be announced in the way that Trump is doing it and all this. So I guess right now was the best time to get the. Yeah. They would come under a lot of scrutiny.
Sure.
Otherwise, under the Biden administration. Okay, so do you have anything else to talk about here? You talked about the role of Kuwait, so rather the Kuwaitis rather than Trump played a big role in facilitating. I can believe that, of course. Then you said that you think that Egypt were part of the blockade, and they were. And it's funny, you never hear Egypt. They're always like the plus one that are part of these things these days, but they never come out and talk about it. So you don't remember that they're part of these blockades or actions or whatever.
Well, Egypt is sometimes regarded as Saudi's army, so we should, and they're the most populous Arab nation, I believe, Arabic-speaking nation at least.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. Okay, so if nothing here to talk about, I say we move on to our last story for today, which is on Jimmy Dore, Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, a little bit of sparring, a little bit of brawling. Yeah. Did I forget the big news of the day? Okay, so we were just about to move on to our last story for today, which is on Jimmy Dore and his fight with the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, but we actually have some huge breaking news. So Sam, please tell us.
Well, I don't know how huge it is, but a famous monster and a nightmarish ghoul of children's dreams all around the world, Sheldon Adelson, has died. So he's a famous American casino owner, someone of Jewish ancestry, and a massive supporter of Israel. He was a massive supporter of Trump. According to certain reports, I believe he gave him $2-3 million for his campaign in 2016. And he was regarded as a financier and sort of a puppet master, a figure behind the politicians in America, and a genuinely evil son of a bitch. So he's dead, so that's good news. And I believe there were celebrations all around the world. In heavens there was a day off was announced, so it's all good.
Yeah, so just to add a few more details to what you just said, to just complement it, so Sheldon Adelson died at the age of 87, and it was caused by complications related to his treatment of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So yeah, he passed away on Tuesday. But yeah, talking about how much he gave money to Trump and stuff, I just have 2 paragraphs here that I just got quickly from BBC or Politico, if I'm not mistaken. So in the 2020 election, the Adelsons, so him and his wife, they set a new record for political gifts from individuals, flooding the Trump campaign and related accounts and many lesser Republican campaigns. So all this money didn't just go to Trump, but he spent, guess how much? A total of how much?
20 million?
172 million.
Jesus Christ.
US dollars, apparently. Yeah. And then the article, sorry, this is from The Guardian. Now I remember where I should have put that in my notes. And then The Guardian goes on to write that Adelson was adored across much of the political spectrum in Israel for his wide-ranging support to many Jewish and also Zionist organizations. Adding that in particular, he was praised by hardline nationalists, in part due to his financial support for Jewish settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories, which are considered illegal by most world powers. One medical school in a settlement, the occupied West Bank, is named after the Adelsons. So yeah, he definitely left his mark behind. And yeah, he was a huge Trump donor. I mean, I was reading the kind of articles that have come out of him. Like right now, they're still like, they're as friendly as they can get for someone like this. They mention how he was apolitical. They keep on mentioning how before he was apolitical. Like, okay, like that's interesting.
What they mean by political, it means that he gave money to Democrats as well as Republicans. So be nice, okay? So that's what they mean. He was definitely as political as you can get. He was very anti-regulation, very pro-Israel. So your usual right wing, and I mean, I think Katie Halper may have made this joke, who's of Jewish ancestry herself, that because sadly Jewish people are stereotypically viewed as these financiers and control the globe. He was not helping that stereotype to disappear. Let's just say he was not a credit to his culture.
No, definitely, I think you can safely say that. But yeah, I'm waiting to see how the coverage is going to be, if there's some, a few people who know about a lot about it. I mean, we just found out, so we couldn't dig much out, but, kind of bring up like the 5 worst things that he's done or support. I guess number 1 is giving a lot of money to Trump, or like one of them. Then the other one are his backings with Israel. But I mean, specific things, just like you mentioned, he was in the casino business, so he must have done also a lot of less very problematic things, but that weren't really in the spotlight. So I'm sure there'll be some good stuff coming out in the next few days. But yeah, this just happened. So Sam, should we move on to our good friend Jimmy Dore? I would like to say
our last story.
Our former friend Cenk Uygur, still friend of ours, and Anna Kasparian.
To be fair, we don't know any of these people.
I'm friends with all of them.
They don't know we
okay.
exist.
Of course they do. I'm gonna comment in the videos after this.
Sure.
Send comments. But okay, so did you see he made another video? Jimmy Dore made another video just accusing Cenk and the Young Turks of a bunch of things. So there are really 3 things I wanted to talk about that I found interesting. One is that he points out that are new, right? Because some of the other ones are like, Cenk was first for it. Why did he change his opinion like this? Then there's all the money that he's received. And we're going to talk about the money that he's received at the end of this video. We're going to go over some of the comments that were left on our last Jimmy Dore video. So we're just going to look at those. But some of the new stuff that I saw that were interesting in this video. So the first one that I want to start with is this hilarious Anna Kasparian tweet. So I'll just read it out for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, of course, about the Medicare for all debate and forced to vote and blah blah. So Anna Kasparian, after of course saying that this is not a good idea and all this and being on Cenk's side, she had tweeted that that said, there's an extra there in there. With that said, pressuring politicians to actually represent us is the right thing to do. I just question his intentions, and for good reason. Even a broken clock, etc., etc. So she's saying that his broken clock is right twice a day and all that, blah blah blah. But I mean, this tweet, I can't believe she sent this out. So you made this whole thing, opposed this, this whole idea, not because you don't think it's a good idea. You actually still think that it's a good idea, but because you question his motives. I mean, Let me tell you a few other interesting, funny things that happened in the video. So one is that, like, Jimmy points out that, like, Cenk is being very hypocritical, saying that, he's, like, angry and shouting, where Cenk himself is kind of known, and there's so many videos of him going crazy. Yeah, and then he also points out, like, how, it was like 10 months ago, and Cenk recorded this himself. But they were like, the plane was delayed by 3 to 4 hours or something, and Cenk goes like full Cenk, At the same time, I kind of understand him. You get frustrated, but then there's this guy in this video that has like such a good heart. I mean, I wish I was like this video. He's telling Cenk, come on, man, how would you feel it if you were trying to do your job and someone's shouting at you? I was
to get the flight here. I mean, if
your job was to do your job and someone came to you and said, sir, your job, you're shitty, I don't like your job, you're doing terrible. Would you not say, bro, I know how to do my job, don't try me. You would defend yourself.
My brother, people say that I do a shitty job every day. Thousands of them do every day.
That's not a good thing, bro.
It's like, you're a good person, because I can see after how 3 or 4 hours, fine, you don't have to go full Cenk crazy, but it gets heated when you're waiting for a plane and stuff. Sorry?
He did say he was hungry at the time,
so I think someone pointed out in the comment section that Cenk is always hungry or something.
He mentioned it 4 times that I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm hungry.
I feel like he knew, like, yeah, I don't think he could control himself. Like, he just looks like...
Well, to be honest, though, all of this is margin. It's just mudslinging.
No, this is no big deal. This is nothing.
They talk about real issues.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because they keep accusing Jimmy Dore of this, then he has to respond, and it's all just becomes it's just bullshit. Yeah, bullshit.
No, it's definitely ridiculous, but fun to talk about, and there's some good things in there. So the last thing now, this one, I mean, Jimmy is 100% right. So he's been saying this a lot, that TYT have been smearing Julian Assange. And so he points out to a few things. So first he pointed out how, with the whole Russiagate and everything during that time, Cenk, there's video of him while he was doing the show. He's like, I can't really trust Julian Assange now. What if he's like withholding information that will be good for Hillary, but putting out stuff that are good for Trump? So he just kind of started undermining him and like, where he would sit and all this debate. But then there's the other video that they show where Anna Kasparian is kind of going through some comments recently, and someone asked her, have you heard about Julian Assange? So Julian Assange recently got a really big court victory. And she was like, I'll look into it, as if someone is mentioning something obscure. But they finally did a 10 to 15 minute section on the fact that Julian Assange, so first a week ago, the court ruled that he can't be extradited to the United States, and the only reason that the judge gave was the fact that he could possibly commit suicide in American prisons and they can't guarantee his health. But then after that, 2 days later, he was unfortunately denied bail, so he's still stuck in prison as long as the US is appealing the case. So that's kind of the gist of it. We made another video about this. We'll link it in the description box if you just want to get like the details and some of the reactions and the UN saying how Julian Assange was tortured this whole time and everything. But then, okay, so Anna Kasparian is covering this video. The length is 10 minutes. It sounds good, but I was just really disappointed about her coverage. So very, very matter-of-factly, she kind of just reads, this is what happened, he's free, no kind of emotions that other people are perhaps showing as, this victory for Julian Assange. But that's fine. But that's fine. Sure. Exactly. That's fine. But this is what really got to me, is that she just said that, okay, so the court and the judge said that, yeah, you cannot be extradited to the United States because the prisons are not good. And then the rest of the video, the rest 7 minutes of the video, she was joined by this other host, this lady, and she often talks about African American issues and domestic problems, right? So I was like, I know what she talks about, so I was kind of surprised that she was there. So from there on, they just shifted the conversation just about the U.S. prison system.
Not unsubstantiated, claims, and people are constantly just being driven by social media emotionally. And it's interesting to hear other countries' take on our prison system in this country. I mean, the light has been, the light is on us now. I mean, George Floyd, which people think was some kind of revolutionary thing that really showed us, but it really just showed a lot of others what we have known for a very long time, where another country is stepping in to protect this white man to say, we're not sending him back because we know what could happen to him if he goes to this horrific place. Just imagine all the black men and women and people of color who are in this prison system. But, the other thing is that we just have lost our way in terms of really holding our own government accountable for what they do. And how could we honestly call ourselves patriots and say that we love this country when we can't really hold them accountable for what they do? It's become this celebrity worship when it comes to our government. And it's just gross. I mean, I've said that word once before on the show. It's just horrible to look at the fact that how dirty this government has gotten. It's just dirty. It's operating in street business. You prosecute black people and brown people constantly for behaving this way.
And the rest 7 minutes of the video, nothing about, that the judge didn't say anything about the freedom of speech, that the judge has agreed with everything, all the accusations that have been made by the United States. So she didn't mention any of this, and it just became this conversation about US prison is not good, and then it just became about people in the US getting locked up in prison and all this. And so I just found their coverage to be, they just found one thing that kind of agrees and goes with their narrative, but completely leaving out everything else. So it was just really, really disappointing coverage of them, I thought.
Yeah, their coverage of Russia Gate, Julian Assange case, all of it has been extremely disappointing. And I think they may have developed sort of a resistance to the story, like they kind of out of spite, they don't want to kind of cover it because it highlights their previously largely ineffective coverage of the whole issue by them. And there was more expectation from them, considering that they claim constantly to be and they are in some measures the biggest progressive news network within America. But they rather focus on mean tweets towards Washington Post writers than Julian Assange literally being potentially threatened with a death penalty.
I mean, the way they were talking about it, you could remove Julian Assange and put like some kind of random criminal in there. Like the conversation went like just that far. It kind of had nothing to do.
I haven't seen the video, so I don't want to judge, but I assume what you're saying is that it focused on the faults of the prison system and the safety issues and all.
And I mentioned this in another video too, but I mean, thank God that the judge decided not to extradite him, and he's in terrible health condition and all this. But the way that sometimes even in Young Turks, the way when they were talking about the fact that he's suicidal perhaps, and he's in like bad mental health and all this was talked about without context, as if he's randomly he's tired of this life, or he can't, he's like Epstein, and he can't continue to do whatever perverted and horrible thing.
Epstein was clearly murdered.
I think he was murdered, sure, but I mean, it's just why would Julian Assange be sad? There's a whole reason why, like I mentioned, the UN has said how he's been tortured for 10 years. He's just not randomly like feeling down,
Yeah, I understand. They don't emphasize the context of his of his mental issues.
So I mean, on this point, I must say their coverage was really, really, really bad. Like, I mean, literally mainstream news level of coverage, or not better, and kind of made me think
to be
of.
Fair, mainstream, they don't even cover.
Well, we talked about France 24 and DW last week, and
enough,
but in the States, 100% American mainstream news, they definitely don't cover it, so they're not any better. But I mean, I have to agree with Jimmy Dore here, especially. I mean, pretty much they've been smearing Julian Assange's name in their coverage. I mean, It was really bad and disappointing. And then you just reminded me of one thing though, about how Young Turks are like the biggest progressive voice out there. And yeah, their channel and everything is huge. And you know, they have 5 million followers now. And Jimmy Dore is pointing out how some of their live videos really don't get that many views. But I don't think that's because they've bought any of their subscriptions, anything like that. It's just that they've been around for so long that they're just piling up. And some people, you know, probably don't even remember who the Young Turks are.
I think I'm still a subscriber, but I never go on their lives. You stay around long enough, and you know, people forget to unsubscribe. So yeah.
But just so we don't spend our whole day saying bad stuff about the Young Turks, you should go check out their video. I've watched this one like at least 3 times. It's with Anna and 2 other guests, and they talk about the whole girl in the hotel who just went insane with her mobile phone and everything in New York. They had a really good segment on it. It's gone like 500,000 views so far. I'm responsible for like 3,000 or 4,000 of those views. But yeah. But okay, Sam. So I was thinking we wrap up today's episode by just looking at some of the comments that people left for us in our last Jimmy Dore video.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, somebody left a great comment explaining exactly how does the voting system for the election of the Speaker of the House works. Thanks for that. Apparently, it's simple majority, but the progressive could have voted for somebody else, and then that way they would have avoided either McCarthy or Pelosi to gaining simple majority. So thanks for that explanation. And yeah, I forgot the handle of the user because it was a bit hard for me. But again, thanks for everybody. Just we should do more of our homework, to be honest. But yeah, whenever we don't, please help.
Yeah, no, 100%. So it was by Ewald Bracco, and he shared pretty much sources with us and everything, explaining how it would have gone.
Yeah, that was great. The PDF for the frequently asked question and all that. Thanks so much.
Very nice and concise PDF too. I was like, okay. It was like 3 pages, quick answers, really, really good. Okay, someone else just posted this. I hadn't even seen this one. They're like a channel named Spar and Brawl that is concerned with tone. Not a very compelling start, fellas.
Hey,
he has a point. And honestly, they've kind of, since last week, I've been more, I mean, not that I had a problem with his tone really that much. You were just saying a bit that someone always shouting is maybe you think that it's not always productive, but
no, I don't even mind.
Touche
there. Productive. No, it's productive. It's just I can't listen to it for a long time. I get annoyed. No. But yeah, fair point though. I really didn't think about that. The name does invite some challenge. So yeah, fair enough.
No,
fair enough.
Totally true. Christian Cafiero.
In a very kind way. Yeah. In a Jesus way.
But I mean, honestly, his anger right now, this one, I'm completely fine with listening because it's not so crazy. When Bernie Sanders dropped out, during that time, it was unreal. Like, I remember during that time, I didn't listen to him for a few weeks. I think then it was just a bit hard. But okay, let's keep on going. Kirk2112 said that Cenk is simply upset that he got exposed and he's seeing his gravy train crumble at the feet of a pothead comedian in his garage.
It's a bit harsh, but
I think he's still got...
I think they disagree on a strategy, and Cenk is somebody who doesn't want to admit he was wrong. So I think that's a bit too much. I think, I don't know.
Yep, another one here, John P. saying, Team Jimmy all day, every day. Okay, go Jimmy.
Oh, what tell us what you really think.
The next one is Cenk is an excuse-making neoliberal.
All right.
Not too sure. And then there's pretty much this whole comment by IGT about his tone and saying that, if you're not forceful and if you don't make yourself heard. So it says here at the end, I'm Chilean and haven't seen a policy taken that were positive to the people without protests, public displays of anger. And he specifies non-violent means are valid tools. And No, that's
Yeah,
definitely true.
yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's what I mean by I think it's definitely productive. It's just something I can't um, deal with
Yeah.
easily. But yeah, it's definitely far more productive than asking nicely for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Jimmy has turned this whole thing. It's been like 6 weeks now that they've been talking about this. You know, he single-handedly pretty much brought. I mean, it was 100% his idea. And so there's another comment that I wanted to get to where I was replying to it, and someone called me naive. So let me bring that up. That was from another Jimmy video. And finally, here we have Stacey E, who says tone policing and a lack of fight are why the left never gets anything for their vote.
I agree.
Again,
I agree.
fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, let's get okay, some other comments here. So this one I found interesting. So again, they started talking about the 20 million that they've raised and all that. And someone was saying that if this came from an investment company, so this wasn't given as a donation. So usually if you receive 20 million, right? Pretty much, then if you, let's say, evaluate your company at $20 million, that means you've usually given 100% of ownership of your company to that,
Oh yeah,
to
yeah,
to
I
those
read that
investors.
comment.
So
Yeah, I really don't. I didn't research this as well, but I really need to research the ownership of TYT and see
yeah,
how does it work.
so that's
But I
interesting.
guess maybe you make a deal for investment and advert. I don't really know. Maybe it
Yeah,
wasn't.
that's what I would
like-
assume. Because then the person is saying either they gave away a huge chunk of the Young Turks, or the Young Turks is valued at, I don't know, like $200 million
$50
or
million
something. Yeah,
or something.
or more.
Yeah.
Even 50 million. That means you would have given
Yeah.
away like 40% of the company. And then the person refers to, if I'm mistaken, to Shark Tank and all that. And that's where I've also seen it, that whenever they make an investment, so if your company is valued 100,000 and someone invests 25,000, that means you give them 25% of your company.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It depends on
Yeah.
how you value. each
Exactly.
share.
Yeah. So then I told them, well, what if some of the money was given as donation? And they said that sounds very naive regarding the donors.
All right.
So
Well,
possibly.
it's possible though. Like I mean, Intercept wasn't always shit before Russiagate and all that, and that was funded by basically money from Pierre Omidyar, who's a billionaire, and I don't think he would have agreed with most of their coverage. Some billionaires, some rich corporations do, sometimes for tax reasons, sometimes because of eccentricities, do these type of things. So it's possible, but yeah, I agree that it's unlikely.
Yeah. No, I mean, this definitely seems like, I mean, for instance, the Intercept, the way it started, you could tell, like, there was a kind of cause behind it and how it started. So I can see that. But here, I mean, if you look at the people who gave the 20 million, they seem like they're straight up in there for business. And they are, So I'm just going to find one thing. Okay. So, and just to wrap this up, so we kept on talking about, is it true that they got 20 million from the Clintons and blah, blah, blah. So from what I understand, that comes from what we've just been talking about. So this Business Insider article is from 2017, and it says that the firms 3L Capital, Graycroft, and E Ventures, and W and Crow, whatever, which is led by the business executive and Democratic Party kingmaker Jeffrey Katzenberg. So this is the relation, I guess, where the Clinton comes from, will invest 20 million in the progressive media company, which for a decade has live streamed hours of video content with a progressive perspective. So basically, apparently Jeffrey Katzenberg, which I wasn't familiar before this, he's big, I guess, some kind of donor. He's involved in the Democratic Party. So I think this is why they say that, it's the Clintons who have given him 20 million.
I see. I mean, that's a name Jimmy mentioned in some of his videos.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I think that's it. If we're wrong, people, please correct us. You seem to know more than us. But yeah, okay, all right. I think that's it for today, Sam. Any final words, or should we call it a day?
No, let's call it a day. Thanks for listening, and hopefully watch our content. Like,
definitely
subscribe. I mean, come on. What you got to lose?
Exactly what Sam said. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in our next video.
Take care. Bye.